And Mike, over to you, ready for you.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to session number 62 of our Small Business Town Hall, Disaster Relief Loans, COVID and Fires. We also have our case attorney partnership today to answer questions related to the pandemic for both financial and legal related matters. And figure out why this is not advancing for me. So introduction, we are the Northern California Small Business Development Center, SBDC, and we're supported by both the Small Business Administration and the state of California. As a result of that, that funding provides that there is no fee advising available for small business owners across the state of California. I'm part of the Finance Center, and we specialize in getting loans for small businesses, helping you to put together the information and resources necessary to be packaged for lenders to access not only the SBA loans that are available, obviously, but also the pandemic-related financing that we've been dealing with since March. On our team, we have Scott Rogalski, who's our director, who you're used to seeing, as well as Sunita Maharaj, who's our associate director. And my name is Michael Ballstead. I'm a regional advisor for the team. So for today's agenda, we have our disclaimer as would be normal. We're going to cover the COVID and fire economic injury disaster loan parameters, the PPP required documents for forgiveness, SBA updates including Fire and Small Business Week. Then at that point, we'll start our CASEFORCE Attorney Coalition, and we will be having Jesse Finrock join us here in a little bit. And then we'll discuss upcoming webinars, and we'll be open for Q&A. So our disclaimer is things are changing all the time. All the information on this slide deck was current and accurate as of the time we updated it, which was, we finished up just before the call started, so we make sure we have the most current up-to-date information. Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program is still accepting applications for most businesses, and those would be including nonprofit organizations under all the following 501c3, C4, and C6. But the advance, which most of you may have remembered as being the potential for a $10,000 grant, that has been closed. But still do please apply for EIDL as that portal is still open. And the PPP program has been closed as of August 8th of 2020. So they're no longer accepting applications for that program. So for our COVID and fire related parameters, we have two sets of EIDL loans that are available. One is broader for the pandemic related issues, and the others are more targeted for fire. And so we have a rate that's going to be this for the COVID related loans. You have a rate that's 2 3/4 for nonprofit, 3 3/4 for for-profit organizations. Whereas for the fire related, it's still 2 3/4 for nonprofit. It's only 3% for for-profit organizations. Both loans are amortized for a period of 30 years. And you have payment deferrals for 11 months. You won't have a payment due until after 11 months, but interest does continue to accrue over the time for both loans. And for both loans, you do have collateral required for loans of above $25,000. And there'll be collateral required or personal guarantees will be required on loans for over $200,000 from all owners that are above 20% in ownership of the company. Neither of these programs are forgivable, so once you take these on, you will have to make the payments. However, as you can see, they are for a long period of time and at a lower interest rate, which makes them easier to handle as you're paying those off. What you're allowed to spend the money on, screen here. You are allowed to use the funds for all operating expenses, cost of goods sold, and interest on your debt payments, business-related debt payments. And that would be related to ordinary business and operating expenses. You are not allowed to use the funds for, for expanding your business. This is strictly to keep your business afloat. So you won't be able to pay off your loans in full. You can't use it to refinance higher interest debt that you have in place. And you cannot use it to pay any tax liens. So now, do we have Carrie on the line from SBA? Looks like we do not. Okay.
Sorry, I was muted. The next door has decided to start laying some, pumping some concrete through a thing.
Oh.
So I was muting for the benefit of everybody. I don't see Carrie on yet, so I can probably cover some of the stuff about Small Business Week if you'd like me to.
Well, I'll first go. I was going to have her address a little bit with the required documents for forgiveness, but I can go ahead and cover that a little bit. Actually, well, I see they're actually wanting to go through the document. Let me see if I can pull that up. See page 3 for the calculation. And forgive me, this was going to be being covered by someone else. Okay, so this is in completing your forgiveness application. This is the page where you're going to put in everything that you paid out for compensation to your employees, your average full-time equivalents from your PPP Schedule A worksheet. So this is how you're going to calculate what is going to be forgivable portion of your loan or not. And what I would say with this would be to fill these lines in as best you can. And if you're having a challenge understanding or working through it, if you would call the ASKSBDC number and get connected with one of us, we can individually work with you to help you go through this document. I think it's probably going to be the most productive way to handle that. And let me go back to the
so Mike,
yes.
You were showing the same required documents for PPP slide. If you
all right. Forgive my technical ignorance. All right, let me see here. I'm going to do a new share of this slide. Okay. All right, my apologies. So this right here is page 3 of the forgiveness application. And this is where you're going to be working to put in the numbers as they exist for you currently. The amount of cash compensation that you made currently. This is from Schedule A. You're going to enter your average full-time equivalent employees from the Schedule A. You're going to enter your salary hourly wage reduction if you've had any. So for instance, if you reduce someone from $25 to $20 an hour, if something like that happened, or if it was an amount of pay per pay period, what that reduction was. So for instance, if you're typically paying someone $600 a week and that went down to $400 a week. So it wasn't maybe a per hour rate change, but a number of hours change. That's what you would put in there. So from that, if you're having trouble working through this math, my suggestion again would be to call the 1-833-ASK-SBDC number so an advisor could work with you one-on-one through your specific numbers. It's going to make probably a lot more sense than me speaking it from a slide. I think it would probably be a lot more effective. Okay, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint now. Let's see. And then this other link here, and I don't know if you're able to copy that to the chat.
They're in the chat already, Mike.
Awesome, excellent, thank you. So this will be the instructions for the application, so you're not flying blind, so to speak. But again, we're all here and happy to be of assistance, so please reach out if you have a need. And our folks in the that are answering our lines will be able to connect you with one of us advisors to help you work through your application. And for support, we have these current numbers for SBA available. For any of the disaster customer service related issues, for instance, if you had an application declined, you would call the 800-659 2955 phone number. You can also reach out to disaster customer service at sba.gov. For reconsideration, if you were declined, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't get the loan. It may be that they needed additional information, or maybe it would be helpful, pardon me, if you had to, if there were some clarification of some issues. So you can reach out to pdcrecons at sba.gov, and they would be able to, you would reach out there to ask for reconsideration. And then, so that's where you would look at, see if you could have a reconsideration of your loan application. And then finally, if it's just questions because you've got a loan that is already in place, then you have questions about how to make some payments early if you want to pay the loan off early or a portion of it early so that you don't have lots of interest accumulating, or maybe it's an issue of if you were to sell your business, what would happen. You can reach out to El Paso DLSC at SBA.gov or call 800-487-6019. And then finally, we were going to have Heather and Julie on the line to give some fire support updates. My understanding from Ellen is that we were going to have Carrie on the line. Is she here yet?
I don't see Carrie, no. Maybe she's not. Maybe she got pulled into the meeting that Heather and Julie were running. So.
Okay, so what I would say with this for everybody, because I'm sure there are a number of you in counties that are affected by this, and maybe you're looking into this program for yourselves, please put the questions into the appropriate box down to the Q&A box on this call. We won't be able to answer those on this forum, but what we will do is we will capture those and the names of the folks that asked them, and we'll get answers to those questions and get them back to you over the next couple of days as we're able to correspond with our counterparts over at SBA. I'm really sorry for that inconvenience, but we will get the answers for you best we can. Okay, and so now we forward to this. And if you're able to summarize this for us, Alan, is for the Small Business Week.
Yeah, many of you will be familiar with Small Business Week. It's normally something we do that the SBA runs during May, but it got kind of put on hold because with the absolute chaos of May and everyone else's priorities. But now things we've settled into something that feels like some sort of new normal, or at least temporary normal. They brought this forward, so there is a virtual conference. It started yesterday, running through to tomorrow. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's going on today and tomorrow. There's links, a bunch of presentations, really aimed at helping businesses recover and adapt under what is a very challenging time. So if you have a look at those links, if you go to the slide deck that's downloadable, you'll see there's live links there for register here, the schedule and the program guide. I'll also put those live links directly into the chat in a second, so you can click on those if you need to.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move into our Q&A here shortly. I just want to give this disclaimer. These office hours are intended to be a resource for small businesses with fewer than 25 employees and nonprofits to learn about various resources and legal issues relevant to the COVID-19 pandemic. They are not intended to offer legal advice, and the leaders of the office hours are not able to represent office hour participants as their attorneys. This session is intended to address issues related to the pandemic, and panelists aren't able to comment on general non-pandemic related matters. And I would just, again, this is kind of a recurring theme throughout. We do get a lot of call. Oftentimes we have over 100 folks on the call, and to make sure that we can address as many of the questions as possible during this time, we really need to focus just on those things that are related to the pandemic. Things beyond that, we're able to address offline. So again, call 833-ASK-SBDC for any direct help from an advisor. And likewise, the resource that that CASEFORCE has posted online and is periodically put in the chat box for you to download the link. So here is the statewide resource guide, which he'll go ahead and put the link into the chat. You can visit the UC Berkeley Law School website for more information on the California Small Enterprise Task Force and to download the frequently updated statewide small business resource guide. And today our attorney is Jesse Finrock. He's a corporate attorney and he's with Morrison Forster. Thanks for joining us, Jesse. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm having, I don't know if you can hear me or see me.
We can.
Having some Wi-Fi issues over here. So have sort of jerry-rigged a setup with a hotspot and an iPad. So we'll see how it works. But yeah, all in all, I'm doing pretty well and happy to be here.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, we can hear you. And so we'll go ahead and move forward here. I have a couple things I do want to give updates. We are going to have our Monday webinar next week is we'll do our disaster loan updates, but we'll also have someone talking about credit repair. And you know, at this time, there are many of us who, business owners and otherwise, who have had challenges due to cash flow and may have to address some credit repair issues. So we'll have an expert on the line to help giving some tips on how to address some of those matters. And then on next Wednesday, it'll be just as it is today. It'll be another fire and COVID update and CASEFORCE. And then Alan, if you want to go ahead and talk about the updated list of webinars you guys will be delivering over the month.
Yeah, so that credit, if you want more details on the credit, credit, he's doing a full 90-minute session, so about an hour of content and 30 minutes of Q&A on credit repair and the full details of it. And that's actually tomorrow, 10 to 11:30. For those of you looking to move yourself to an online space, there is we've been doing a number of things around online selling, and on next Tuesday we've got a session on setting up your using Shopify to set up an e-commerce website. I'm going to skip towards the one on the 13th of October, which is like a general bigger picture of what you need to do to grow your business and start doing generating online sales. Then into October, we start with cash flow management. We have Paul Barzo, who's one of our great advisors at the regional level and it works with a number of the centers as well, has got a tool that he's developed, which allows you to track or plan cash flow at a weekly or monthly basis. We typically do it on a monthly to allow you to really see where you're going to be going and drill down and get your forecasting in place. And he's doing a session for that on the 1st. And then the 5th and the 12th, our restaurant program, we're running a program on how to launch a local cottage food business. So that will be, that's 3 to 4:30 on that Monday, the 5th, and Wednesday, the 12th. And there'll be some more things we'll be adding. As always, you can find these things on our calendar, the SBDC.events network calendar, where you'll find not only these ones, which are being run at the regional level, but also all the different ones that all the local centers, the 16 centers and that cover the 30 counties that we support and all the various programs and affiliates that we have. Everybody's there, and typically there's about 10 to 12 different webinars each week apart from these ones. So please take a look on those. And because there are webinars these days, it doesn't really matter where you are. Anyone can sign up for anybody's webinar and view them. They're almost all of them, I believe, are free. I think there's a couple of them now are beginning to, some of the bigger program pieces we're actually beginning to charge for, but the vast majority of these are free and your tax dollars at work supporting you. All right, that's what's coming up in the way of webinars. I think it's hit the Q&A time, folks.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Alan. Let me forward this here. So I've got this on the screen, our contact information, 833-ASK-SBDC. ASKSBDC.com is our website where you can go and see resources and dates for all of our upcoming events. And our two email addresses are loans@asksbdc.com. And for our Spanish-speaking folks, it's espanol@asksbdc.com. So at this point, I'm going to start with some questions. And on the screen now, I have, my first question is from Martin, and it says, with regard to PPP forgiveness, please explain how I calculate the FTE for part-time employees. Is this based on a 40-hour work week or something else? So thank you for asking, Martin. That's a very good question. There was clarification that it is based on the 40. There was a question whether it was 30 or 40, because 30 is what was used for, I believe it was the Affordable Care Act. But it is the 40-hour week, and you have choices on part-time. You can either use the actual number of hours, or you can base it as 1.0 full-time equivalent for 40 hours, and anything under that you could calculate as 0.5. So those are the two ways that you could calculate those hours. But yes, both of them are going to be based on the 40-hour work week. So my next question comes up is PPP forgiveness question. Sole proprietor used 60% for payroll replacement, 6 of the 10 weeks on which PPP was calculated, and the remaining 40% to pay office lease, etc. Is this correct and acceptable according to the regulations? So the answer to that, there are going to be a couple of caveats. With regard to the 60% for payroll, so long as that amount meets the maximum that you could have as a sole proprietor. So you have the choice of 8 or 24 weeks as your payout period. And the most that can be based on is the equivalent of $100,000 per year. So if your amount that you were collecting was in excess of, I want to say it's 14,000, I need to look that up real quick. If it was, we'll just say if it's in excess of $15,000, you would want to do that over 24 weeks, because the most you can collect, let's see, max PPP. I apologize for having to look this up. And for the, so if you take it out for 24 weeks, the maximum you can take out is $20,833. For 8 weeks, it's $15,385. So that would be the one caveat, is $15,385 is the maximum as a sole proprietor that you could take out as payroll over an 8-week period. So with regard to the 40%, the caveat is the office lease is fine. It's going to depend on what the et cetera is, and if it is part of the other allowed usages, which would be utilities and interest. So as long as it falls into those categories, that 40% is fine. And as long as you're under the limit for 8 weeks, under the 15,385, you would be fine on the 60% payroll. If you need further clarification, please let me know, and thank you for your patience. Okay, from David, this would be for Jesse. So David asks, our business has been closed 100% since mid-March. Are there any attorneys that will take up our case, as this has now become punitive?
And Mike, just let you know, we've also been joined by Cooper.
Oh, hi, Cooper.
So nice to see you, Cooper. So we've
Hi,
got
Mike. Hi, Alan.
we have more than one attorney with us today.
Excellent. And Cooper's our employment attorney. So now we've got someone who's corporate and someone who's employment. So we'll be able to address more questions. So for either of you two, do you know if there are attorneys that are, or maybe you have a better question for them? I'm not sure what they mean by it's become punitive. Maybe you can give some guidance to them on where they could look for an attorney.
Absolutely. This is Jesse, and Cooper, feel free to add any other thoughts you might have. You know, if by punitive you mean, you know, there are issues with employees, et cetera, then I think, you know, Cooper may have some additional thoughts here. There are attorneys who are able to help with this, and probably where I would go, of course, this depends on your location, but probably where I would go for this information is actually the resource guide at the hosted by Berkeley. There are a number of resources in that guide, and you can look by location, so you can find your location in the guide and find resources, including local legal resources, and local attorneys. There are also resources to nonprofits and other organizations, sometimes government organizations, local government organizations, that can direct you toward attorneys that are working in this space. So without further information, that's what I would say. You know, connect with the resource guide, connect with your local agency, and see who is available. But there are absolutely attorneys who are taking up these matters.
Excellent, thank you so much. Anything to add, Cooper?
No, nothing to add.
All right, excellent, thank you. All right.
Mike, this is Brett. I just wanted to mention I've put links in the chat window both to the resource guide as well as some nonprofit resources who are aimed explicitly at one-on-one counseling with attorneys. And so there are places, links to follow, and you can submit an application and you should hear back before too long.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Brett. Okay, my next question is from Brenda Phillips, and she asks, on a PPP forgiveness question, as an independent contractor and have been receiving unemployment, I received a PPP loan, but haven't paid myself payroll until just now. I understand that once I pay myself, I need to report that to the EDD. I just want to confirm that my understanding is the correct procedure. Also, when are we supposed to turn in the easy form? Do I need to wait until the end of the 24-week period? I think that this is going to be partially answered by myself and partially by Cooper. I'll ask him to fill in a little bit too. The important thing to understand is you can't double dip. You can't be receiving unemployment and PPP payments at the same time. So if you are still collecting unemployment, then and you're going to pay yourself from PPP, you would need to report that in some way. And I'm hoping Cooper has a better idea of how you would facilitate that. With regard to the easy form and forgiveness, yeah, you do need to wait till the end of your period. If you're choosing 8 weeks, you do it after 8. If it's after 24, you would do it after 24. And then Cooper, do you have any understanding how they would address the issue with EDD and reporting the other compensation coming?
Not offhand, Mike. I could circle back on that, but I'm also not seeing I might be missing something. I'm not seeing the question here in our Q&A.
It's right now. It's the very top one, and it shows as 10:36 a.m. is when it was posted.
Yeah, it's not coming up for me.
Yeah, maybe you may not be able to see it, Cooper. It may have come in before you did. And that becomes that's a
okay. If it appeared before I came, okay.
And I could try and copy it into.
Yeah, could you do it in just to a private chat to him?
We'll do that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. All right, and from Steve, we have any banks actually begun accepting and processing forgiveness applications? I do understand there are some banks that have been accepting the applications. How far the processing has gone, I don't know. I would say that would be a question to ask your specific bank. That would be best answered by them. Okay. And then I have another one regarding EIDL. Tony is asking, business is a gym. Can I use EIDL to keep it online operational for several months? But if business cannot open soon or be back at full capacity in 2021, then it will close for good. Then what? So I wish my SBA person was on the line right now, because effectively, if you're going to close the business, you know, your debt from SBA is going to follow you. It's not something that's going to be discharged. And so what I would say, Tony, is this is one that will capture, if you could do that for me, Alan, this is one that we'll capture, and we'll try to get you an answer to that over the next day or so, as we're able to correspond with our SBA folks.
Okay.
Okay, from Martin, regarding PPP forgiveness. So retail business closed for 2 months by county order. Employees were furloughed for 8 weeks, then all returned at same compensation rates. Can I use the easy form claiming the third exemption? With that, my suspicion would be, I'm not sure why you would have to use an exemption if everybody returned and they're all back at their same rate and they're being the same compensation, but you haven't spent it down. Then one of the things I'd be looking at, and reach out to ASKSBDC about your situation specifically, but that's why they give the 24-week option, because if you were closed for the 8 weeks that you had the money, they give you now 28 weeks to spend, or 24 weeks to spend down the money. So that's probably how you would handle that, rather than an exemption. Okay.
Maybe worth checking with Cooper. I sent him in a private text with the question. Did you get a chance to see that, Cooper?
I did, Alan. Yes, I'm looking into that. Thank you.
Right.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, and let's see. Does this quarantined time fall into the wages reimbursed on 941s? So, Kelly, I don't know if you could type in another note to clarify that. Is that to mean that you did pay people? Because if you did pay people, that's exactly the purpose of this, is that you're keeping people paid and on payroll rather than being on unemployment. That was the purpose for these funds.
There's also the possibility she might be referring to the Family First or Family Friendly, the FFCRA, which says that people can get tax repay. That if somebody has to take time off for quarantine related or corona related issues, and you're paying them, you can claim that back against as a tax credit on your 941. So I think that to me, that's my reading of that question.
Okay. All right. Excellent.
Cooper might be our best bet to address that, being the HR specialist.
Excellent. Do you have any thoughts on that? If what Alan mentioned is the correct scenario?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't catch what Alan was saying, and now I'm trying to look for the question.
So Kelly asked, does this quarantined time fall into wages reimbursed on 941s? Alan's take on that question is that they're probably talking about FFCRA, and so he thought you might be the best one to answer that question. And that was by Kelly.
And the question is whether during the quarantine time, this person quarantined?
So that's what we're assuming from our read of the question. Yes.
Is whether that would fall into reimbursed wages on the 941s.
Yeah, I'm not sure offhand. I could take a look into that. Alan, if you want to send me that question on the chat, that might help.
I'll do that as well.
Thank you, Cooper.
Yeah, I would suggest, if you have a look at our YouTube channel, I'll put the post up for that in a second as well. We had an HR consultant on Monday who tackled those sorts of questions specifically, and that so about halfway through her session, she was talking about the different types of leave and how they're paid out and that people are available for. So I'll find the link to that recording and post it in there. And then I'll send Cooper that question as well.
My next question here is with regard to the using a 24-week period, but all PPP funds have been spent on payroll by week 15. Can I file for forgiveness before the 24-week period runs out? And so I'm actually going to look that up as we're speaking. Okay, so I have this. PPP borrowers who needed fewer weeks than the initial 8 or 24-week covered period to effectively use their PPP funds may now apply for PPP loan forgiveness prior to the end of the covered period or maturity date of the loan if the borrower has used all the loan proceeds for which the borrower requested. So the answer according to that would be yes, Martin, you would be able to file for forgiveness prior to the end of your 24 weeks. Okay, so I have a question here from Carolyn. I have used up the money and was told by the lender that they would let me know when to apply for forgiveness. I've been waiting for a while and really want to get this done. What do you suggest to help me bring this to a conclusion? We have filled out the forgiveness application. So Carolyn, unfortunately, the lenders each are going to have their own protocols for when they're beginning to accept the applications. I guess if I were in your position, typically what I do when I'm not getting the response on timely matters, I just become a squeaky wheel. So I would just contact whomever the point of contact is you have at the bank, find out who you can speak to above them, those types of things, so that you can try to get some attention on your case. I wish I had a more helpful answer for you on that, but again, it's handled at the bank level.
Yeah, and we've also heard.
So I have a question from James, and this is asking.
Go ahead, Mike.
Hello?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was showing that my internet connection was unstable, and then I froze for a second. Could you please repeat what you were saying, Alan?
Oh, I'm just saying that we have heard that some banks are kind of guessing that you'll be aware that we have heard that there's talk, although it hasn't gotten anywhere in Congress, about doing some automatic forgiveness for certain amounts. And we've heard that some banks, where they're heavy on those smaller numbers, are just like pushing back and waiting until that comes through. But again, that's I would reemphasize what Mike said. Be the squeaky wheel. Tell them that you want to get this done. You want to get this cleared off your books, and that they should be open to accepting forgiveness at this point.
Thank you, Alan. All right, so I have from James a question about the EIDL reconsideration procedure, and we actually there is a PDC RECONS at SBA.gov is the email address that you would email, and I would include your application. You would have gotten a confirmation number on your EIDL app. I would include that in your subject line with the word reconsideration. Again, if it were me, that's what I'd be putting in there so they know what the email is about and the case that it's about. And if, Alan, if you wouldn't mind popping that email address in the chat box.
Yeah, I just put it. I just sent it to him directly as an answer to his question as well.
Excellent, thank you so much. And then the next person below that was Stephanie. Can you put the links in the chat? Yes, Stephanie, actually all the links are being placed in the chat, and pretty much each time that we're mentioning them so that people aren't having to scroll back too terribly far. If you have one specifically.
Also, all the links pretty much are in the deck. So please, if you download the deck, those are all live links, and I put the link where you can download the deck in there.
Excellent, thank you.
And I see a 916 number. I suspect that's Carrie, who said she was going to be joining us. Is that Carrie who's just joined us?
Yes, it is, Alan. Thank you for allowing me to join here at the end. We just had a Small Business Week event for our Region 9 winners in the Sacramento, Fresno, San Francisco, and LA districts. It was a great panel.
Nice. We're very glad you could make it.
Well, thank you. I know that you put in our links for some of the events that are going on for National Small Business Week. So let me know when's a good time for me to talk about those, and I'll be happy to do that.
No, I'm glad to allow you to do that right now. And I'll take that while you're doing that. I'll take a chance to catch up on some of the questions that are in our chat. So yeah, please feel free to address those now. I'll back up the slide to, let's see. There you go. Are you able to see that?
Let's see.
It's the slide.
I've got them here on my, yes.
Excellent.
Perfect. Very good.
So feel free to start whenever you like, and I'm going to try to catch up on some of these questions as you're going.
Okay, sounds really good. So hello, everyone, and thank you for having us join you today from the Small Business Administration. I would like to let you know that we are doing a virtual National Small Business Week this week from Tuesday through Thursday. We have an easy way for you to join that there on slide number 8. There'll be different panels going on during these days for you to participate in virtually. And there's also going to be information on Thursday about our surety bond program, which is primarily for small businesses that are in the contracting industry. And what they can do with that surety bond is they will assist you when you're in need of bonding for a project. They can back that up with an SBA guarantee for you. So what you will then have is a little better price on that bond and the opportunity to get a larger bond than you might typically be able to obtain on your own, particularly if you are a newer small business that's going into the federal contracting arena. You will need to make sure that you have all of that information available to you. In terms of the surety bond program, we actually have one of our bonding agents in the Sacramento area. Her name is Shirley Baugh, and she is going to be recognized on that program. And you'll get to hear from her a little bit more about what she's done. She's been in the program over 30 years, so that's a great accomplishment. And Heather Lutzy, our district director, and I were able to actually go to her business and present that award to her. So I would encourage you, if you have an opportunity, to join either the National Small Business Week virtually or the Bonding Week event virtually as well. Lots of good information there for you as a small business. And that's what I had for today on those events. The bonding event does start at noon tomorrow, and there'll be activities through 4 o'clock. And then on Friday, it starts again at noon until 4 with different speakers. Shirley, our agency representative, will be on at 2 o'clock on Friday. So if you're interested in watching that, please take time to do that. Are there any other questions that I might answer for anyone?
I actually have a few here. So I've got a question from Amy. She got $150,000 EIDL, and so far she has spent about $15,000. Looks like business is closing. It's a live entertainment venue. Will give back what I haven't used. If biz no longer exists, is it required to pay back the portion used? There is nothing to pay it back with. Company is done because there isn't any government provided help for live entertainment. That will be likely closed for many months to come. I don't want to keep paying expenses and delaying the inevitable. or should I keep using the EIDL and hope we can reopen sometime next year?
Well, I cannot give you specific advice on that. I would recommend that you speak with one of our SBDC advisors at the Finance Center. What I can tell you about the economic injury disaster loan is that is a federal debt and you will be required to pay that debt. So I would encourage you to send back the portion that you haven't used, and then what you can do with the SBA is work out a payment plan for the remainder. Because those are federal funds that are provided to the agency via tax dollar allocations, those debts don't go away for you. So it's important if you will go speak to one of our finance counselors at the Small Business Development Finance Center. They can assist you with working through that process in terms of repaying the amount that you used, as well as sending back the portion that you did not use. And I'm sorry to hear about your business, and wish you the best in your next venture.
But thank you so much for that. And I would concur. Please call SBDC, and you had talked about whether to delay the inevitable, or maybe you can reopen next year. And maybe it would be helpful to bounce some ideas if there are ways to pivot your business to be able to adapt to the current environment. Okay, a next question. So Vivian is asking, Carrie, can I use PPP loan to pay for creating a new web page advertising? Actually.
Okay, so the Paycheck Protection Program loan had specific guidelines for its use. It was primarily structured to pay your employees' salaries and other benefits for them. And then there was a portion that you could use on rent and utilities and things like that. If you chose to use those funds for a purpose that is not listed in the loan program, then it would not be forgivable, and that debt would remain with you until you paid that off.
Thank you. And actually,
So I would encourage you. Go on.
I was saying I misread that because I was thinking EIDL. So and I didn't know if that would equate to expansion, but yeah, PPP. My apologies.
Okay, so did I answer her on the correct loan program?
Yes, I think so. Okay. Yes, but let's see. I'm trying to see if there's anything else here really quick that would be.
Yeah, if she, I'm sorry, if she doesn't have an economic injury disaster loan, then I would encourage her to go to SBA.gov and apply for that loan, because that would be a operation of your business expense that you could use those funds for.
And so I have a question about that as well, Carrie. So if that was under EIDL, because it's creating a web page, would that be considered, would that for any reason be considered expansion?
Well, if she, I wouldn't think so. If she already has a website and she's adding a page about some new aspect to her business, or developing the business with that additional area, it doesn't seem like it. If she has no web page, that could possibly be considered expansion. What she might want to do with that is, that's a good question. I would say no at this point. But if it were, if it were more along the lines of, okay, I'm going to open a new store facility and that type of things, that would be different. But it seems to me like that would be additional business marketing, which would be on to keep your business continued.
I do have one more here that I think would be good for you to answer. And then it says, we are moving our business to a new location. Are there any issues with PPP or EIDL loans during a move? I was told I need to pay them back if we move fully if we move locations.
Boy, I haven't heard that either one of those would have to be paid back fully if you move locations. I have not heard that. Now, with the Paycheck Protection Program loan or the EIDL loan, neither one of those would be able to be used for the cost of the move or the expansion. As far as I understand the rules, you may want to, again, sit down with an SBDC finance representative and go through the details of what you're proposing here and how you would be using those funds.
Mike, there's a question at the top of that's been upvoted up a little bit, which is about credit score required for the SBA to approve.
Oh, there you go.
So it's a question, what's the credit score is required for the SBA to approve a COVID-19 and or fire disaster relief loan? Is it a score based, Carrie?
It is a component of that calculation to approve that loan. I don't have the exact score number that they're using because they include that with other aspects of your loan application. So I would, if I were to venture a guess, I would say that you're going to need to have something in the 500 range. I couldn't give you a specific number, but that would be my guess. And again, if you are declined on an economic injury disaster loan and they don't give you a reason why you're declined, you might suspect it's your credit or whatever other reason, first you could go to the finance center, help them take a look, get them to help you take a look at your current credit rating and then see if there's something there you need to work on. And secondly, you have up to 6 months to reapply for that economic injury disaster loan if you're declined on the first request. So that would go to the PDC Recons, RECONS, at SBA.gov. I think, Alan, we've put that information out before.
A few times. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
And also we do have a full webinar tomorrow on credit repair and keep getting your credit up to speed. And if you can't make that, he'll be doing a short recap of that on Monday. So in this session, so that's also helpful. I'd ask people to please put their questions into the Q&A rather than the chat. A lot of people are throwing their questions in chat. We triage them through Q&A. It's the only way we can really handle them today.
Okay, so I've got, I think right now, and I'm looking to try to best utilize Carrie's time since she's here. And I think we've got everything that would for Carrie right now. So now I've got some attorney questions. Okay, so where is it here? Okay, so anybody who might be able to answer a question with regard to commercial lease eviction moratorium. The expiration is on September 30th. Is this the deadline for a request for non-eviction deferment of rent or a hard stop for the term of the moratorium?
So this is Jesse. You will really need to understand the nature of the moratorium in your exact location. And so again, I hate to punt, but you really should contact your local agency, whether that's state or sort of disassociated county, and figure out what the moratorium says with respect to whether those are payments or just evictions. And that sort of thing. And again, you can find a lot of this, the resources for this information on the resource guide. So look that up, look up your location in the resource guide, and then you can contact your applicable local agency and ask about the nature of your specific moratorium.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, Larry asks, there was some conversation about SBA forgiving PPP loans, 150K and below. Any information on that? I know that's been talked about in the news. There has been no agreement on the next set of changes with regard to PPP and additional funding. So until that's law, really, there's nothing we can do to speculate about that. So there's nothing solid that you could bank on at this point. Okay. All right, I have one question here about bankruptcy. It might be loosely tied to the pandemic because I'm sure there are a number of people that will be applying, unfortunately. So here's a question for either of our attorneys that might be able to answer this. Regarding bankruptcy, we know it stays on your credit report for 7 years and then it goes away. My question pertains to the court retention of bankruptcy records. Are court bankruptcy records available permanently, A, to the public and or B, to the legal profession? If not, can one ever completely expunge them from court records and after how many years?
So I apologize. I'm not a bankruptcy attorney, so I'm not actually 100% sure about this question. And what I would recommend is that we connect with one of our bankruptcy attorneys in our network and see if we can get a response on this.
Okay, so Alan, would that be one that we would grab this and then once we get an answer, post it to the site?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Get a response to the person.
All right. Oh, excellent. All right, Bill. So we'll work to get you a response to that. Okay. And we have Natalia's asking a question, forgiveness question. S Corp, is the maximum amount that we can spend on payroll 2.5 months of 2019 payroll, the amount for employee and the owner in order to reach the forgiveness, or can we spend more on the payroll not to exceed 2.5 months since we are choosing 24 weeks? Okay. So I guess one of the things it's going to depend on is your number of employees, and if you're having a reduction in your full-time equivalents. The bottom line is the limit is for 24 weeks for anybody, what they can have as compensation would be the $20,835 over that 24-week period. That would be the maximum as an owner you could get, and that's presuming that you're paying yourself under a W-2 if you're an S Corp. Okay. Okay, I have this one is here. This would be for Cooper. Melissa's asking, EDD classified me as an employee from over 19 months ago, then disqualified me, not recognizing that I am self-employed with established business. If I did get any PUA, would EIDL need to be declared or question mark? I guess the first question would be, Cooper, if she's being looked at as an employee from over 19 months ago when she's not an employee, how would she try to get that reconciled? And then I can answer the EIDL piece.
Unfortunately, yeah, again, this is not something I know offhand, Mike. EDD is not a regular part of my practice, so some of these questions I'm just not going to be able to answer.
Okay, all right, thank you. So we'll see what we can find out about that for you, Melissa. But what I would say is that if at some point you're getting PUA and you or had it and you got EIDL, you couldn't receive them in the same pay periods. That would be the issue. You can't have a duplication of use at the same time. Okay. answered that one. Make my way through some of these. A lot of really good questions here today. Okay. That was irrelevant now. Okay, Carrie, would you happen to still be on the line?
And Heather's joined us as well, by the way. So.
Oh, hi, Heather.
Yes,
All
I
right,
am.
great. Excellent. I do have a question now. If I sell the business, can the new owner take over the EIDL loan?
You would need that to send that into SBA. It's a process of them assessing how that transition is going to affect the new business owner and the new business. So that's not one that I can answer specifically, but you'll want to send that into our Texas, I think it's the Texas Servicing Department there. Alan, do we have that information available? I think this question has come up before.
The El Paso DLSC at SBA.gov?
Yes, I believe that's the correct
I'll
one.
throw that into the chat again.
Awesome, thank you.
And Ian is asking if we could repost the link to the deck.
Yes. We've done it a couple
Okay,
times.
so I've got a question here that I'm not sure. I mean, I would think that you would look at the resource guide for this, but if any of you know the answer to this, Mark is asking, are the recent Riverside County small business grants considered taxable?
I think we're short of CPAs here, so I don't think anyone's going to step up and answer that one. What I've heard from CPAs on here before is income is taxable.
Right. So the question is if the grant is going to be considered income because it's a grant. So I would just say, first question I would ask your if you can't find the information in the resource guide, I would ask your tax professional.
And you may well find that information actually on the grant proposal or on the grant request or application. It would likely that you would unlikely be the only person asking that question, and so it was almost certainly be provided in the original information around the grant. I've seen it on a couple of grants, grant proposal which I've seen. They all state that this is taxable funds coming into your business.
Thank you. So on
and I'm not a tax attorney, but that may actually depend on your own tax status. So, you know, if you are a nonprofit, tax exempt organization, you likely would not need to pay any income on that.
Thanks, Jesse. Yeah. Yeah,
so
I've got a message from Heather. Check with your accountant.
Next question is from Gloria. Does a $10,000 EIDL have to be repaid if the ad said it does not have to be repaid? So Gloria, the clarification would be, was it the EIDL advance? And if it was the EIDL advance, no, that specifically does not have to be paid back. That is considered effectively a grant. Now that said, the question will become, did you also receive a PPP loan? Because those grants are offset by PPP funds. So if you did receive that and hadn't declared it when you applied for your PPP, it may cause some of your PPP not to be forgivable, a portion equal to that $10,000. So for your specific situation, if you want more clarification and can discuss it with one of our advisors, please feel free to call the 833 ASK-SBDC line, and we'd be glad to talk you through it. Okay. Evan asks, if I use my home or apartment as my place of business for admin and storage for my business, can I use my PPP loan to pay the rent or mortgage? If not in full, can I pay part of the rent as part of the business office with the PPP loan? So actually, Carrie or Heather, would you have any thoughts on this?
If I think that's more of a tax-related question in my mind, just because when the PPP was designed, they were talking about commercial space rental and leasing expenses. So I would say no, or talk to one of the SBDC advisors and see if they can get more clarity on that piece of the legislation.
And
At this point,
I've got a note from Heather came through on this one. It says,
oh,
none
good,
of you
okay.
previously used this deduction. So if you previously were claiming a home office deduction, then then essentially your home office is you're paying for it already. So if you're already doing that, then it's a valid use. But if you're just doing it for now, it's if you can't prove that you were doing it before, it's not a valid use anymore.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, you have a PPP. Let me read through this one really quickly. If you have. Okay, so we've got one here for TCB. They're asking if you're a sole proprietor, if you have EDD and don't use the PPP funds that you've received, then use them, for example, for 4 weeks or 10. You are supposed to notify EDD for that 4 weeks and not accept EDD funds during that period, correct? Well, I'll just make it a lot more basic for you. You cannot receive funds to support you as income from 2 sources at the same time. You can't double dip, so you can't use them for the same period. Okay. Let's see if I have any more here that weren't answered. Okay, and maybe Carrie or Heather can help me on this one. I don't recall this exactly. We've got an owner, a single shareholder of an S Corp, pays for his own health care. If the S Corp pays and writes the check for the health insurance, would that be considered payroll? So in other words, just to really clarify this one, for an owner employee, are they allowed to consider the payroll or the healthcare for them specifically as part of the PPP fund usage for payroll expenses?
Okay, Heather's just thrown something into the chat on that. I'm going to read it out because that's what I do. S corporations, the employee cash compensation of an S corporation owner employee defined as an owner who is also an employee is eligible for loan forgiveness up to the amount of 2.5/12 of their 2019 employee cash compensation, with cash compensation defined as it is for all other employees. You know what? I'm not going to read this whole thing out. It's going to take forever. I'm going to put this as I'm going to take that and copy it in and make that the answer that we'll put onto that question. I shall type that answer in, and it can be seen by anyone who wants to see that answer. It was complicated. Heather apologizes, her microphone isn't working, which is why she's doing it this way, providing useful information, if somewhat a complicated method of getting it to people.
Thank you for your persistence, Heather. We really appreciate it. Let's see, we've answered that one.
I think that the bad news for you is I see a line that's saying employer contributions for health insurance are not eligible for additional forgiveness for S corporation employees with at least 2% stake in the business. So that's probably bad news
Yes.
for the person who was
I did recall, but I wasn't certain, and I didn't want to have people sitting here in silence for longer. So yeah, I do recall that there was circumstances where employee owners, their portion of the healthcare was not part of the forgivable expense. Okay, so I've got a question here from Doug, and I'm not able to answer this one, but maybe Heather or Carrie can. Has there been any more guidance on the safe harbor clause in PPP? My business is in San Francisco, and we are all still under restrictions. So I assume I don't have to return to the previous FTE, and the FTE reduction calculation does not apply to me. And that it was a question, not a statement.
Could you repeat that question again? I'm not understanding. Thank you.
Sure. Has there been any more guidance on the safe harbor clause in PPP? My business is in San Francisco and we are still under restrictions. So I'll rephrase this part as a question. Do I have to return to previous full-time equivalents, and does the FTE calculation still apply to my business?
I believe I haven't heard of any updates to that safe harbor, and maybe Heather can respond to that via chat, but it's my understanding that you would need to meet those requirements for the number of employees.
And the only thing I would say to that, Doug, is that when the Flexibility Act was passed in June, they did provide 2 or 3 exemptions to the FTE requirement. So there were a few circumstances in which you could get around that. And so what I'll go ahead and do is, Alan, if you could grab this question and route it to me, I'll go ahead and grab those particular exclusions from the Act, and I'll send those to him.
Okay. I'm going to channel Heather from previous answers to questions like this over the last 60-something sessions we've had, which is to remind people that the purpose of the PPP was for you to pay people's payroll even if you were not open. So even if you have been shut down and you continue to be shut down, the PPP, the reasoning behind the PPP was to allow people to keep paying people's payroll rather than have them sign on to the unemployment rolls. And for that reason, even if you're shut down and you would be paying people to stay at home and sit there and twiddle their thumbs if you can't find anything else for them to do, then that still applies. So that's to bear in mind the original intent of the program and the way that works.
And
right.
Alan, this is Carrie, and just for interest of that small business owner, if you have people that you are needing to pay using the Paycheck Protection Program loan, we've talked to some small businesses that actually had their employees do other things when they couldn't be open or fully open. So for example, they had their employees assist with some of maintenance at their facility in terms of cleanup or painting or things like that. So if they wanted to keep that person actively engaged, maybe you can't do your regular job, but there's another activity or item that they can perform for you that would be of value to your business, but not necessarily the actual job that they had before. So something to think about is maybe there's other things they could do.
And I would agree with Carrie. We've had circumstances, I've had businesses that I've worked with that, if you step away from the loan and the forgiveness or not forgiveness for a minute, you just think about this. How many functions are there in your business where there's just not time to get to them while you're incredibly busy? This actually, on one side is an incredible opportunity to address some of those deferred maintenance issues. Maybe it's some cross-training issues. You're able to leverage that time and those funds to, adapt, make some adaptations for your business and maybe some strengthening of your employees' skills. So you can, contact ASKSBDC, and if you've got questions around that, maybe we can look at some of the functions in your business and see how you can make some strategic choices on how to use that additional payroll that you're going to be spending. Okay, I've got a question from Tim. It says, any thoughts or updates as to the ongoing enforceability of insurance policy exclusions related to pandemics? As the state opens up, there will be increasing cases where customers are going to assert liability against small businesses for contracting the disease. Also, assume that first dollars out for the defense are going to be going to the small biz. Either of the attorneys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is Jesse. I So these insurance terms are going to be included in your specific insurance agreements. And insurance companies, being what insurance companies are likely to hold fast to those agreements unless the state or the federal government does something different. So in absence of that, and I'm not aware of any, any legislation that has come down the pipe changing, or mitigating these kind of insurance effects. Absent that, the insurance companies are likely, or absent significant PR pressure, the insurance companies are likely to hold fast to their agreements.
Excellent, thank you for that. And I do know too that you might watch. None of us are politicians, but I did see on the news where a couple of pieces of legislation were signed by the governor within the last couple of days that did address some of these things. But we personally don't deal with them here, so I would look. They were addressed in a couple of headlines that I saw yesterday. Okay. Okay, it says, I've got a question here from Gloria. I got no PPP, but got an EIDL $10,000 of the $54,000 loan offered. Is the $10,000, okay, so this is a follow-up to a question previously asked. Yes, that is correct. The $10,000 that was in advance would not need to be paid back. So the loan would be $44,000. The first 10 would be, if it's broken up the way that you're stating, that separate piece, if it's considered the advance, would not have to be paid back. Okay. Okay, so this would be for Carrie or Heather. Can you use EIDL for advanced education if it directly enhances your skills, i.e. manual therapist? I took courses that are expensive that professional sports teams look for.
So in regard to those type of expenses for your EIDL, it's to keep your business going. I do not believe that ongoing education would be part of that unless it's one of your expenses that are to keep your business actually active.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Once again, this really comes down to the purpose of the loan type. So an EIDL, its definition is it's an economic injury. So if something happens to stop you earning money, this is to make up for that that loss and keep you going while you move into your new situation. And so using it as essentially for a form of expansion does not tie in with the main purpose of the loan.
I have from Gwen is asking, she's relocating to another county from LA County and heard it might be a problem from EIDL and PPP. We actually, Carrie answered earlier and hadn't heard that was going to be any kind of an issue. The challenges you're mainly going to find are going to be where you're going to have a change of ownership. And that's where you would have to address on the EIDL. That would be an issue of talking to the service center. But if this is just you moving a business that you own and aren't changing ownership, the answer earlier to a similar question was that wasn't a problem. Okay.
It is 5 minutes to 12, so we've got about 5 minutes left. So we want to pick. I know some of our colleagues, our attorney colleagues, have been picking out questions out of the Q&A and answering them directly as well. So
excellent. Thank you all for your help on that, because we've had a lot of good questions today. I've been able to get to all of them. Okay. Number one here, it says, is it okay if you hold off using the EIDL loan, they got it in August, to wait and see if the business will start up again, or do I have to start using it right away maybe for advertising. So the purpose of that loan, of the EIDL loan, unlike PPP, it wasn't a time-based restriction of use. The purpose of it, it was designed to effectively be a working capital loan. And they're looking at your financials, unless it was during one of the periods where they limited the amount of the loan. Effectively, it's supposed to look like a 6-month working capital loan. So it can be used for anything from payroll to cost of goods, interest on business debt, things of that nature. There was no time when you had to use it by. It's just a loan that's meant for business, keeping your business afloat. That is an interest-bearing loan. That is a 30-year loan. So if you use it or don't use it, if you decide that you're not going to use it, you could certainly give the money back and basically pay off the loan. You would have accrued interest for whatever period of time you've been in possession of those funds. Okay. All right, I see here it says, if you are converting in-person workshops to online workshops, needing videographer and equipment, my company will most likely not open until 2021 because of the nature of our work. Can I use that for EIDL? Okay, Gwen, if you could follow up to that, I want to make sure I understand correctly. You've been doing in-person workshops, and because you're shifting to online, you would need to buy camera equipment. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, so for anyone on the call, this would be a pivot of her existing business. She's changing from the venue that she could operate into one where she's not allowed to operate now. Would that be allowable use of EIDL to acquire that equipment so that she would be able to conduct those workshops in an online environment since she can't do it in person?
And I'll, while waiting for maybe for Heather to finish typing, I suspect she's going to be sending a response. I hope she's going to be sending a response. I would point out that, I would suggest that Gwyn look around at which county she's in and see if there's any form of support from your local town or city or county on that sort of pivot. There's a lot of those happening. I don't know where you are, Gwyn, but there's a lot of those there's a lot of support for companies that have to buy additional equipment, maybe PP or something similar to allow them to pivot. So have a look for those local grants as well.
I see that Gwen just put in that she's in LA County. I would suggest with that you would, one good place to start would be the resource guide. Because it breaks down a lot of resources by county, and I would look there. Then I would also just look to your county and possibly look at whatever SBDC center serves your area. They probably will be very aware of any grants that are available specifically for your county and probably be able to help guide you to how to apply for those.
Yeah, I'd reiterate that. Our colleagues down in the I think it's the LA area, SBDC, will be. And
I apologize that I'm not able to. I'm actually in Northern California. I'm in a different region, so I don't deal with those programs down there.
Gwen, if you just Google LA County SBDC, I'm sure you'll be able to find it there. Or as Heather pointed out, you could contact your Los Angeles district office of the SBA, and they'll have a list of all the technical assistance providers who can help you there as well. And you can find that on the SBA website, according to Heather. I never thought I'd be channeling my Heather this much. I normally channel Scott when he's not here. All right, I see it. We're about to hit noon, so I think it's probably time for us to close off today. We managed to get a whole bunch of questions answered, and we've got a couple of them we need to get follow-up questions, follow-up answers on, and we will get those to people in however quickly we can get the responses for them. So I'm just going to close it all off and say thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to our colleagues at CASEFORCE for providing the legal knowledge today. Thanks to our colleagues from the SBA providing some of those answers. Mike, anything you want to do before we close down?
I just thank you, everybody, for attending, for all of the good questions. Again, all of our best wishes and thoughts with you as you're, working to get your businesses back open, and we're glad to be of whatever help that we can. Please don't hesitate to call 833-ASK-SBDC if there are any further questions or help that you require. Besides just answers to these lending questions, many of our advisors can help you with some strategic planning on how you can help your business pivot and adjust to whatever might be a better operation of your business in the economic environment going forward. And we look forward to seeing you again on our future sessions.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Take care and keep safe.